Hello friends, welcome back to the NCERT sessions. In this video, I am going to explain chapter 2 of class 8 NCERT Geography. The title of the chapter is Land, Soil, Water, Natural Vegetation and Wildlife. So let's get started. Here we have a fact. 90% of the world population occupies only 30% of the land area. The remaining 70% of the land is either sparsely populated or uninhabited. మనం ఇక్కడ చూస్తే we have land. Land is among the most important natural resources. It covers about 30% of the total area of Earth's surface. Next we have land use. Land is used for different purposes such as agriculture, forestry, mining, building houses, roads and setting up of industries. This is called land use. The use of land is determined by physical factors such as topography, soil, climate, minerals and the availability of water. Human factors such as population and technology are also important determinants of the land use pattern. Next, land can be classified on the basis of ownership as private land and community land. Private land is owned by individuals, whereas community land is owned by the community for common use, like collection of fodder, fruits, nuts or medicinal herbs. These community lands are also called as common property resources. Next, we have conservation of land resource. Growing population and their ever-growing demand has led to a large-scale destruction of forest cover and arable land and has created a fear of losing this natural resource. Therefore, the present rate of degradation of land must be checked. Afforestation, land reclamation, regulated use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers, and checks on overgrazing are some of the common methods used to conserve land resources. Next, we have an important topic here, that is landslides. What is a landslide? It is defined as the mass movement of rock, debris or earth down a slope. They often take place in conjunction with earthquakes, floods and volcanoes. A prolonged spell of rainfall can also cause heavy landslide that can block the flow of river for quite some time. సో మీరు ఒకసారి గుర్తు చేసుకుంటే కనుక సునామీ రావడానికి landslides కూడా one of the reason. So when below the ocean or sea landslides అనేది జరిగినప్పుడు మనకి tsunamis వస్తాయి. Next, coming to mitigation mechanism. So here they gave some precautions. They are hazard mapping to locate areas prone to landslides. Hence such areas can be avoided for building settlements. Construction of retention wall to stop land from slipping, increase in the vegetation cover to arrest landslide, the surface drainage control works to control the movement of landslides along with rainwater and spring flows. Here you can see a picture of retention wall. Next, coming to soil. A thin layer of grainy substance covering the surface of the earth is called soil. It is closely linked to the land. Landforms determine the type of the soil. Soil is made up of organic matter, minerals and weathered rocks found on the earth. This happens through the process of weathering. The right mix of minerals and organic matter make the soil fertile. Here you can see the soil profile. This is a topsoil with humus and vegetation. Next we have subsoil with sand, silt and clay. Next we have weathered rock material and then we have parent rock. Here you can see the definition of weathering: the breaking up and decay of exposed rocks by temperature changes, frost action, plants and animals and human activity. An interesting fact here, it makes hundreds of years to make just 1 centimeter of soil. Next, coming to the factors of soil formation. So the major factors of soil formation are the nature of parent rock and climatic factors. Other factors like topography, role of organic material and the time taken for the composition of soil formation also matters. but all these differ from place to place. Here you can see the factors affecting soil formation. First is parent rock, determines the color, texture, chemical properties, mineral content, permeability. Next, coming to relief. This refers to altitude and slope determine accumulation of soil. Next, we have flora, fauna and microorganisms affect the rate of humus formation. Next, we have climate, which refers to temperature, rainfall influence, rate of weathering and humus formation. Next, we have time. Time determines the thickness of the soil profile. So, this soil profile and factors of soil formation are very important. Next, coming to degradation of soil and conservation measures. Soil erosion and depletion are the major threats of the soil as a resource. Both human and natural factors can lead to degradation of soils. Factors which lead to soil degradation are deforestation, overgrazing, overuse of chemical fertilizers or pesticides, rainwash, landslides and floods. So, some methods of soil conservation are listed below. Let's see one by one. First is mulching. So, the bare ground between plants is covered with a layer of organic matter like straw. It helps to retain soil moisture. That is, between the plants, some organic material is filled, which helps in soil moisture. Next is contour barriers. Stones, grass, soil are used to build barriers along contours. Trenches are made in front of the barriers to collect the water. This is to store the water. Next, we have rock dam. Rocks are piled up to slow down the flow of water. This prevents gullies and further soil loss. Next, coming to terrace farming. Broad flat steps or terraces are made up on the steep slopes so that flat surfaces are available to grow crops. They reduce surface runoff and soil erosion. Here in this picture you can see terrace farming. Next, we have intercropping. Different crops are grown in alternate rows and are sown at different times to protect the soil from rainwash. Next, we have contour plowing. Plowing parallel to the contours of a hill slope to form a natural barrier for water to flow down the slope. This is called contour plowing. Here in the picture you can see the contour plowing. Next, we have shelter belts. In the coastal and dry regions, rows of trees are planted to check the wind movement to protect the soil cover. This is called shelter belts. In this picture you can see the shelter belts. Water here. Water is a vital renewable natural resource. 3/4 of the earth's surface is covered with water. Therefore, our planet is called water planet. ikkada manam chuste Amreli city in Saurashtra region with a population of 1.25 lakhs is completely dependent on purchasing water from nearby talukas because of the water scarcity there. Next, look at the problems of water availability. Most of Africa, West Asia, South Asia, parts of Western USA, Northwest Mexico, parts of South America and entire Australia are facing shortages in freshwater supply. So, water shortage may be a consequence of variation in seasonal or annual precipitation, or the scarcity is caused by over exploitation and contamination of water resources. So, how to conserve the water? Let's see. Discharge of untreated or partially treated sewage, agricultural chemicals and industrial effluents in water bodies are major contaminants. They pollute water with nitrates, metals and pesticides. Most of these chemicals are non-biodegradable and reach human bodies through water. Water pollution can be controlled by treating these effluents suitably before releasing them into water bodies. Also, forest and other vegetation cover slows the surface runoff and replenishes the underground water. Water harvesting is another method to save surface runoff. The canals used for irrigating fields should be properly linked to minimize losses by water seepage. Sprinklers effectively irrigate the area by checking water losses through seepage and evaporation. In dry regions with high rates of evaporation, drip or trickle irrigation is very much useful. The valuable water resource can therefore be conserved by adopting these means of irrigations. So, by following all these means like water harvesting, sprinklers, drip system, etc., water conservation is pretty much possible. Next, coming to natural vegetation and wildlife. Here we have the rainwater harvesting meaning. Rainwater harvesting is a process of collecting rainwater from rooftops and directing it to an appropriate location where it is stored for future use. On an average, one spell of rain for 2 hours is enough to save 8,000 liters of water. Next, coming to natural vegetation and wildlife. So, natural vegetation and wildlife exist only in the narrow zone of contact between lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere that we call as biosphere. So, in the biosphere, living beings are interrelated and interdependent on each other for survival. This life supporting system is known as ecosystem. Vegetation and wildlife are valuable resources. Plants provide us timber, give shelter to animals, produce oxygen we breathe, protect soil, essential for growing crops, acts as shelter belts, etc. They also gives us fruits, nuts, latex, turpentine oil, gum, medicinal plants, etc. Here we have vultures. Vultures in the Indian subcontinent were dying of kidney failure shortly after scavenging livestock treated with diclofenac, a painkiller that is similar to aspirin or ibuprofen. Efforts are on to ban the drug for livestock use and breed vultures in capacity. This is important in the species extinction point of view. Next, coming to wildlife. Wildlife includes animals, birds, insects, etc. Next, we have distribution of natural vegetation. The growth of natural vegetation depends primarily on temperature and moisture. So, major vegetation types of the world are forests, grasslands, scrubs and tundras. Forests are broadly divided into evergreen and deciduous forests depending on when they shed their leaves. Evergreen forests do not shed their leaves at all in any season in any year. Deciduous forests shed their leaves in a particular season to conserve loss of moisture through transpiration. Both of these types of forests are further classified as tropical or temperate based on their location in different altitudes. This we have seen in the previous chapter. Next, we have conservation of natural vegetation and wildlife. Many species have become vulnerable or endangered and some are on the verge of extinction. Deforestation, soil erosion, constructional activities, forest fires, tsunami and landslides are some of the human and natural factors which are accelerating the process of extinction of these resources. One of the major concerns is the poaching, which result in a sharp decline in the number of particular species. Animals are poached for the collection and illegal trade of hides, skins, nails, teeth, horns as well as feathers. Some of these animals are tiger, lion, elephant, deer, black buck, crocodile, rhinoceros, snow leopard, ostrich and peacock. These can be conserved by increasing awareness. Here we have the meaning of natural park, a natural area designated to protect the ecological integrity of one or more ecosystems for the present and the future generations. This is called national park. Next, we have the meaning of biosphere reserves, series of protected areas linked through a global network intended to demonstrate the relationship between conservation and development. These meanings are very important, guys. In the NCERT books, especially the meanings or the glossary in the boxes are really very important. You can just pick it up and put it in your answers. So, for conservation we are doing national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves which are made to protect our natural vegetation and wildlife. Conservation of creeks, lakes and wetlands is also necessary to save the precious resources from depletion. Awareness programs like social forestry and Van Mahotsava should be encouraged at the regional and community level. Many countries have passed laws against the trade as well as killing of birds and animals. In India, killing lions, tigers, geese, great Indian bustards and peacocks is illegal. Next, we have CITES. CITES is an international convention which has been established that lists several species of animals and birds. in which trade is prohibited. Conservation of plants and animals is an ethical duty of every citizen. The full form of CITES is the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. It is an international agreement between the governments. It aims to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals and plants doesn't threaten their survival. Roughly 5,000 species of animals and 28,000 species of plants are protected. Bears, dolphins, cacti, corals, orchids and aloes are some examples. Okay guys, this chapter is also important in the environment and ecology point of view. By this we completed chapter 2 of class 8 NCERT Geography. Thank you.